we're joined by Liverpool fan Mo Stewart from the Anfield Wrap and the Athletic's Manchester City correspondent Sam Lee to preview all the Premier League games this weekend. Thanks for joining us, guys. Now, this video is sponsored by The Athletic, the place for the best coverage of your club with a world-class team of writers, including David Ornstein, James Pearce and the one and only Sam Lee. Here he is. You can visit theathletic.co.uk/Squawka to start a 7-day free trial and receive 50% off your yearly subscription. So it works out at just £2.50 per month. Right then, let's get straight stuck into it, shall we? Mo, do you think the game at Old Trafford last week has taken anything out of Liverpool's early season momentum?
It was annoying, I'll give you that. I don't think it's really taken anything out of our momentum. I mean, no one really expected us to go on and win every single game, so there was going to be a point when the winning run came to an end. It's a shame it happened at Old Trafford, there's no denying that. Yeah. But I still think that we're in a much better position than we expected to be at this stage in terms of how far ahead we are. I still think that this is the time of the season where Jurgen Klopp's still trying to just get the result rather than looking to get a great performance. I think as the season develops, we get closer to Christmas time, we will expect to see the performances go up. So, no, I'm feeling really confident where we are right now. Did
you expect, though, that the winning streak would last maybe a little bit longer than it did?
I was just hoping it would be one more game.
Yeah, really, just one more game.
Not only would it not be Man United, we would have equalled City's record as well. So I'd been happy with that, and then we can just go back to it. But then I say that, but then this game against Spurs is quite important as well because there's a little bit of family rivalry going on between me and my father.
Oh, so it's a big one for you.
Yeah, so maybe the game after that we'd have stopped all that.
Well, we'll touch on that a bit later and we'll see what your father says about that as well, shall we? If you can share his insight into that. Now, James Pearce has written a great article on The Athletic on Adam Lallana, who of course scored the equaliser at Old Trafford. Mo, do you think players like him have a big contribution to make this season?
Definitely. I mean, he said it himself in the post-match interview that it's very much a squad game at the moment. And we've got to a place as Liverpool fans where most people, if you ask them to say who's your best 11, I think most people would say 9 or 10 names now.
Yeah.
But at the same time, with so many games, we're in 7 competitions this season. We're really going to need to use everybody. And you can see in some of the midfielders play, I think maybe Henderson and Wijnaldum, particularly at Old Trafford, starting to look a little bit leggy. We ask our midfield to do a lot. So there's going to need to be some rotation. So I'm expecting to see Oxlade-Chamberlain, Lallana, Keita, Milner playing more and more games, particularly now at the end of the year.
Yeah, you're right. Because that level of intensity is bound to take its toll, isn't it? Well, Sam, over to you now, because Pep Guardiola has experimented with starting both Rodri and Fernandinho in his last 2 games. Do you think this is a long-term evolution for those players, or is he trying to make a point about wanting a centre-back in January, do you think?
I don't think he's making a point. I think fundamentally, I think the whole driving force behind Guardiola's whole success is that he's absolutely terrified that he's going to lose the next game.
Yeah.
And that's why he controls absolutely everything, and that's why, you see him down on his haunches when something's going wrong or somebody doesn't score a chance or someone's counter-attacking against him because he's just terrified it's going to go wrong. So he ain't going to mess around and pick somebody for a position like centre-backs. If City had lost at Palace at the weekend with those 2 centre-backs, they'd have fallen further behind Liverpool. It would have been like a full-on disaster, really. He wouldn't do that just to make the point about, maybe we'll buy someone in January and then go on from there, because the gap would be too big. So I don't think he's trying to make a point. I think it's just the defenders he's got, with Laporte being injured, haven't really convinced. There's question marks, I think, generally around Stones and Otamendi. But I think Guardiola's got those same doubts as well, which is why we've seen in the Wolves game, change his system to try and protect the defence a bit more, but then that ended up hampering the attack, and there was more scrutiny on the defence, and then Otamendi wasn't ready to handle it. Stones can be a bit fragile as well. When he's good, he's really good, but when he's not, he goes to pieces a bit, and that's why he's missed the end of the season the last few years. So basically, Guardiola's just trying new things. And another thing that's probably important to point out, probably a bit detailed and tactically, but Guardiola keeps saying they're not ready to win the Champions League. And when we asked him about that, he means specifically, he always goes back to the build-up. So he means when City are, playing out from the back and putting all the passes together, and their defensive problems they've had this season, even in games they've won, he says it's been down to that build-up. And obviously, the better the build-up, the more midfielders you're going to have, the better the players are more comfortable with the ball. So it kind of makes sense that he put Rodri at centre-back as well, because Rodri's really good. And they're not just... The thing with Guardiola is all connected. So it's not just he stuck them in at centre back. You know, if United put like Fred and Matic at centre back, they'd actually be having to defend as well. You know, and it'll be a disaster. But you know, City play on the front foot, and they're effectively midfielders. They're all on the halfway line. They can build up properly, and they were doing that again against Atalanta. So it's not just they're not being asked to do centre back stuff really. They're still midfielders, and that's just such a Guardiola thing, isn't it? Like there's 4, 5, 6 midfielders right in the middle of the team. So I think he's probably thought, I haven't really got the centre backs to defend. So if I can control the game even more with more midfielders, they don't have to defend, and then we'll see how we go. I mean, I don't know if that's going to work in like the big games, but I'm interested to see how it goes for now.
Yeah, it is. It will be interesting to see. Well, Sam, obviously you work for The Athletic, and you've recently published an article on the analysis of Phil Foden.
Yeah.
Could this weekend, do you think, against Aston Villa be a good time for him to start his first Premier League game of the season?
Again, I think this kind of ties back into Guardiola being like terrified of losing games. And because from the outside, it's like, well, Foden is really good. In the article, I actually went into it thinking, if I ever look at all these things he does, maybe I'll highlight some things that aren't so good. And I was looking at his through balls, and basically all of them were really bad. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. But then I looked at David Silva, and most of his were bad. And there's like a smart passes section on De Bruyne, and his were like really bad. I was like, is this a joke? Like, all of De Bruyne's passes are really bad. And then, but you know, that's no different to any creative midfielder, really. They're going to lose the ball a lot if they're trying to create a lot, and he does create a lot. Against Atalanta the other night, he created a lot. He showed that he can contribute in this team. But it goes back to Guardiola being terrified because at the moment, Foden isn't quite as consistent and involved in the game over 90 minutes as, you know, David Silva or even Gundogan, Kevin De Bruyne. And these are players who, again, talking about the build-up, they don't really miss many passes in the midfield. They're not going to cause any problems. They're not going to be out-muscled out of something and cause a counter-attack. And I think that's why Guardiola's not picking Foden at the moment. But like, he played so well against Atalanta, and you think it's Aston Villa at home. Again, with City's like fragility, you can't really take anything for granted. But I would think, give him a go again. And he can give him a run in the team then, because he started against Atalanta. He could, for argument's sake, start against Villa. Then they got Southampton in the Carabao Cup. You'd think he'd start against them. He could even start against Southampton in the league. And it also, for Guardiola, does himself a favour, because people will stop asking about Phil Foden. If he plays 4 games in a row,
it shuts
people will
up.
stop asking.
Right then, let's look ahead to this weekend's games. We've got Liverpool's last Premier League lineup and Tottenham's Champions League lineup on screen. Now, we're recording this before Liverpool play Genk, so something might come up during that game. But the latest injury news right now is that Trent Alexander-Arnold and Joel Matip are expected to be available after missing the Champions League game versus Genk. That makes sense, yeah? Yeah, good. For Spurs, they look to have come through their midweek Champions League win intact and might only have long-term absentees Ryan Sessegnon and Hugo Lloris missing. So then, Mo, how do you think Jurgen Klopp will approach this one?
Well, it's very interesting because when we have 3 intense games in a week, you very rarely see the same lineup again and again. Specifically in midfield, like I said earlier, it's such a hard job playing in our midfield. So let's start with the easy ones first. I think the defence, like you say, Matip and Trent, I mean, I don't know what kind of virus Trent has, but I'm pretty sure he'll be all right by Sunday. So I expect that 5 to look very similar. With the attack, the front 3, obviously Salah's back in full training now, which means that I think he will be starting for this game. So the back 5 and the front 3 will look pretty much as you expect it. Now, this is where it gets interesting because, well, I feel like with us being at home, with us having a good recent record against Spurs, and because of the way that the substitutes came on and changed the game against United, we can afford to be a little bit more dynamic in our midfield, a little bit more progressive. So I wouldn't be surprised if maybe Henderson moves to the bench and we see Naby Keita come in from the start. I'd like to think that Wijnaldum will have more of his Holland responsibilities than his Liverpool responsibilities, which will allow him to get forward more. We'll see more players into the box, which is something we were missing a lot against Old Trafford. But the thing with Spurs is that there's been times in the previous times we've played against them where Pochettino's tried to throw in a little ringer, tried to do something a little bit different. And so I think Klopp might be concerned about that as well. We might end up seeing 3 at the back.
They're changing every week, aren't they? That's the thing, right? You never know. Because Spurs have got problems, obviously. They battered Red Star in the middle week, but they've got problems. Nobody really knows what's going on. They're changing all the time. It could be 3 at the back. Well, Sissoko and Ndombele is pretty like pretty strong midfield, but it might not even be them. Eriksen doesn't seem to be around it at the moment because he's one of the kind of
this guy
problem issues. Ali is
he's the one.
He needs a big one.
I would have thought up until maybe 5-6 months ago that the idea of him not starting would be madness, but at the moment he just doesn't look like he's got that same drive. And I agree with you. I think Sissoko and Ndombele will start. I might even see them bring in Harry Winks. He's someone who likes to keep the ball well. What they do, if they do go free at the back, they do try to kind of squeeze the midfield a little bit. So you'll see Winks, Sissoko and Ndombele. You'll see an Eriksen kind of stay close to them, and then maybe a Son and a Kane as a front two, maybe. We've seen something like that happen.
Would you agree with that, Son?
I can't get my head around this. I don't know if there's a tackling sport in the world that can move quickly enough to keep that as a three at the back. Yeah. I mean, there we go. But now it's looking a bit more like it. Yeah, I mean, I could see that because you've always got the option of three at the back. But, they've got players capable there in the middle of controlling it. But you've got the wing backs who can go forward or drop back. There's a bit of flexibility there. I wouldn't be surprised by that. But it's really difficult with Spurs at the minute.
Yeah,
really
difficult to
It's
predict.
difficult enough at the best of times, but now with Pochettino trying to find all these answers.
Particularly going up against Liverpool as well.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised by something like that.
No, I still don't think it will be enough to get them the win, though. I should point that out. I still think we'll do enough with a good job.
Now then, this is Man City and Aston Villa's starting 11 from their last games on screen. And the latest injury news is City are going to have Rodri missing after he limped off versus Atalanta. Now, Zinchenko is also expected at this time to miss out, and Villa could have Jonathan Kodjia available after an injury hit start to his time in the Premier League. So then, Sam, do you expect to see a similar side to this?
Who knows? It's difficult to predict anyway. But with the centre-back situation, Rodri probably being injured, I guess Otamendi probably hasn't got much credit in the bank after the Wolves game, and Stones came on first against Atalanta, and I'd guess it'll be Stones that comes in, especially he's better on the ball, and you might need that against Villa to penetrate the lines and all that kind of thing. But the other thing is left-back, because Mendy played 2 games in a row in the last 2 games, but that's the first time that's happened since his latest knee problem, which was around April, May. I'm not sure if he's ready to do 3, but then Zinchenko's got a knee problem. Angelino is there, he is a left back, but kind of bought as a backup. I mean, which is obviously for these situations, so he will play, but not a great option. He's an attacking option. It's an interesting one because he'll be able to get forward, he'll be able to keep the width, he can put crosses in. Not great defensively, but that said, none of City's left backs are really. So they're going to need a lot of cover, but then Fernandinho, Stones, not great. Maybe they could play Cancelo there. That would be interesting. It looked good going forward against Wolves, but not always great. I'll probably say it's a safer bet than Angelino, though. Midfield, we mentioned Foden already.
Yeah.
Who knows?
What would you say, though, about Foden? What do you reckon? If you had to predict it.
I think probably Silva will come back in. Because another element of it is Silva doesn't play, like, if they've got 3 games, Saturday, Wednesday, Saturday, Silva's not going to play all 3 anymore.
Yeah.
And obviously having been rested midweek, I'd probably say he's more likely to come in. Gundogan, he's got that number 6 role now. He can keep Fernandinho in defence. Rodri's injured, so Gundogan can stay where he is. De Bruyne, obviously, if he's fit, he plays. And he was taken off quite early against Atalanta to kind of keep him fresh. So that picked itself up front. Jesus and Aguero is a bit of a conversation again, but not like in any controversial way. They're just both good. Bernardo Silva, you think, might come in instead of Mahrez. Sterling generally plays all the time. So yeah, I'd probably just say change Bernardo around, keep Aguero in, I reckon. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if it was Jesus, but I'd say stick with Aguero, and it's probably going to be something like that, I'd have thought. Villa's an interesting one because depends how they set up.
Yeah.
Because if they go for it, and like Jack Grealish, I did a piece about De Bruyne from the Palace game, and I looked at his chances created this season. And he's in the Premier League. No one's created more chances from open play than De Bruyne. He's like 25. I think Grealish was second with like 23, 24, and that's really impressive for any. Like, I thought you'd expect it to be someone at Liverpool or even another City player. But for it to be Grealish, that's good. Yeah. McGinn's really good. So they've got a couple of threats there. The rest of them are kind of like it's on the day, and if Wesley has a good game, maybe it's going to be a problem. But if they keep him and El Ghazi quiet, they're not so bad.
Yeah.
But this is it. Villa aren't really expected to win these games.
No.
You need Wesley to come in like he did against Norwich. He's not going to play well 5 games out of 5. It's going to be 2 out of 5 maybe. So this weekend they can cause City danger. I still think City will be all right.
It's interesting because Villa, they seem like one of those teams who play better away from home. They remind me a little bit of Crystal Palace. They don't do well when they've got lots of the ball when they're expected to go and make the play. But if they can pick off the bits of broken play and then they can go and attack from there, then they've got a real chance. I mean, they took the lead at Arsenal, they took the lead at Spurs. Didn't win either of those games, by the way. But they're going to give you in a situation where they can give City some problems, especially if the defence is still looking as shaky as it has been. So
it'll be the counter-attacks again. Yeah. I'm just trying to think, going on about Guardiola and the build-up, if there's anything he can kind of do to change that. I suppose the only thing they did against Atalanta and Crystal Palace when it was Rodri was he was stepping up into midfield. And it was he was playing it more as a midfield kind of position. He was stepping up there, and it was a bit more solid in the midfield. Maybe they'll do it that way, but then it's going to be maybe Fernandinho doing that, and he did it against Arsenal last year, so that would work. And then you've just got a lot of pressure there on Stones to stay back and sweep up, which will be interesting, I suppose. But then we've got the pace of Cancelo and Walker. Maybe it'll work. Maybe it'll be okay.
Right then, well, there's loads of football taking place up and down the country this weekend, so let's have a quick look through the fixtures. I'll start with you then, Mo. On the Friday night, we've got Southampton, Leicester City.
It's a tough one. I reckon that Southampton will be up for it, but they do look a little bit short of goals at the moment. Leicester City are flying, haven't done it away from home, but I expect this to be an away win.
Definitely, and one that you're going to be covering, Sam.
Yeah.
The early kick-off on Saturday, Man City, Aston Villa.
Yeah. I think City will be all right. I think they'll score enough goals. If they've got De Bruyne, they're going to create chances. Whether it's David Silva or Foden, they'll be all right. Gundogan's pretty comfortable in midfield, and with those three supplying, whoever plays in the front three, they should be all right, and that should cover any problems they've got in the defence.
Feeling confident, I like it. Right then, Mo, Brighton, Everton.
2 really hard teams to call.
Yeah.
They've both been flattering to deceive, I would say, this season. To be brutally honest with you, I expect this to be last on match of the day.
Well, there's competition for that in the whole last on match of the day stakes.
Oh, Watford, Bournemouth. What?
Not a lot of quality with Watford at the moment. Bournemouth, they just seem to be scraping by, really, don't they? Just the odd draw here and there, not doing an awful lot at the minute. Just existing, surviving. Good luck to them. I don't know about this game. You think at some point Watford are going to get a win?
Yeah, that's the thing.
Turn things around. They're really good against Spurs, but teams can raise it for different games, and this is the problem with teams like Watford. They raise it for a trip to Spurs, maybe not necessarily a home game against Bournemouth. Anyone's guess. I mean, it could be 2-2, it could be 0-0. Either team could win. It's got the potential. I'd say it's got the potential at least to be interesting, more so than probably Brighton, Everton.
Well, this has got the potential to be interesting, hasn't it, Mo? West Ham, Sheffield United.
Definitely. 2 teams who've got identical records. Again, hard to predict because they've won 3, drawn 3 and lost 3. So you don't really know what form they're going to be in. But West Ham, they've got some great attacking talent. When you think about Felipe Anderson and Halle out front. But Sheffield United, they've been giving a lot of teams problems. I have this one down as a more entertaining draw than Brighton Everton, so maybe a 2-2, I'd say.
We shall see. Right then, into the evening, the 5:30 kickoff. Burnley and Chelsea, that'll be interesting as well.
That is an interesting game. Burnley, you know what you're going to get, and I mean that in a good way. To be fair, they know what they're doing and they do it well. Dwight McNeil's really good. The 2 strikers, Barnes and Wood, they're going to give anyone problems. Chelsea, they've been really getting it together recently. They had a lot of kind of good PR at the start of the season, but they were conceding a lot of goals and they were really open and looked a bit naive. But obviously they had the young English players and they were scoring and playing attacking football, so that bought them a bit of time. They seem to have tightened up a bit recently, but this will be a proper test for them. Like Leicester, I don't see that kind of consistency in them. And you think at some point they might drop points. And I wouldn't be surprised if Chelsea didn't win at Burnley because it's not always a difficult place, but Burnley are going quite well at the minute. And I think
they'll give them a tough time.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that Chelsea defence is going to have a proper examination. So I wouldn't be surprised if Chelsea didn't win.
Well, we shall see. Sunday then, Newcastle against Wolves at the 2:00 kickoff.
Yeah, this is probably slightly easier to predict,
Yeah.
I think. I mean, Newcastle, obviously, the last home game was the win against Manchester United. They were obviously very much up for that game. I can't see them having it in the same way against Wolves. Wolves look like they're back to themselves of last season. They'll probably have Diogo Jota and Jimenez back in tandem together up front. It's going to be a hard game for Newcastle. I can see this being an easy Wolves win.
Yeah, it's going to be tough for them. Sorry, Steve Bruce. Right then, the 4:30 kickoffs, Arsenal, Crystal Palace.
Arsenal. Who knows? And I mean, Crystal Palace, they're still up there in the table, but I'm not sure how or why. I'm not sure where all these points have come from. They're a team, I said probably less so than Burnley. They know what they're doing. I think Burnley are probably a bit more dangerous and a bit more solid. Crystal Palace, really hot and cold, but Arsenal, the most hot and the most cold. I really don't know. And after a Europa League game, generally difficult. I know probably the last time they did it, they managed to beat Villa in the end. You just don't never know with Arsenal. I've no idea. I've got a
Palace win.
Have you?
Yeah. Palace are good. They're good travellers away from home. I've got them for
There's most giving Palace the win.
I'll go with Big Mo.
Well, the game you're going to be watching is Liverpool Spurs.
No away wins here.
Is that an easy win for Liverpool?
It's never easy. Spurs, again, you can look at them and say that they're a team who've been playing badly for a long time, but they're still a team full of very good players. They may have got some confidence back from midweek, so it's going to be a tough game. We won 2-1 last time. They came to Anfield. I predict very similar this game.
We shall see. And finally then, Sam, Norwich, who obviously gave Man City a good run for the money, take on Man United.
Norwich haven't won since beating City, have they? But I wouldn't be surprised if they won again. I really wouldn't be surprised. Talking about, Watford raising it at Spurs, you can see Norwich being up for this. Again, United after the Europa League. Just a really bad team. But they are, United are
get
bad.
down off that fence, will you, Sam?
but they just are bad. Yeah. I mean, look, to be fair, a lot of people aren't really mentioning that, Pogba's been injured and Martial's been injured.
Yeah.
And that makes a difference against teams like this. Like we saw against Chelsea first game of the season. If you've got someone with the quality to play a ball like that and someone with the quality to finish it, you're going to be all right. They're missing those players. But that said, without those players, they're not creating a lot. They were fine against Liverpool because they didn't have to have the ball. Norwich are going to give United the ball. They're not especially creative. Norwich are going to be up for it. I can really see Norwich getting a result. If not winning, then definitely a draw. I think I'd be more surprised if United won.
You know what? I was just about to say. I think I'd be more surprised if Man United win. How bad is that?
Yeah.
What do you reckon, though?
No, I have to concur with Sam on all of that. I think this game where they were expected to try and be a little bit more progressive, they got away with being negative against Liverpool because of the status of Liverpool at the moment and where they are in the moment. But they wouldn't be able to do that against Norwich. And Norwich, when they're at home, they have got some good creative midfielders, I think of Buendia and Cantwell in particular, who can get amongst you. And if you go into that game without the right mentality, with any kind of fear, they'll get exposed.
Well, thank you both. Thank you both for joining me. Now, before we let you go anywhere, we've got one final thing. You don't need to look nervous. No, you do. This is the fabled Squawka Challenge, right? So the leaderboard's up on the screen. You can see here. Now, Sam, you've had a go at this already. So first up, Mo, right?
Yeah.
60 seconds. Okay. Do you know what this is about? Do you know what this leaderboard is about?
I've seen it. I'm a little bit disconcerted to see Sam's already at the top.
Right, Sam, but that might change. So bear with us with this. So Mo, you are going to get 60 seconds and you have to name as many Brazilian football teams as you can, starting from now. Okay,
Atlético Mineiro, Grêmio, Goiás, Corinthians, Cruzeiro, Palmeiras, Santos, Sao Paulo, Vasco da Gama. There's more. What have I forgotten? I said Goiás, CSV. They're technically a team. There's some really Corinthians. I didn't say Corinthians. Did I say Cruzeiro already? I might have said Cruzeiro already. Bahia, said that.
You're doing really well, Emma.
I know.
Go on.
I feel like there's a Brazilian team called Everton as well, which I might be wrong about that, but I feel
Can we
like...
get that check, please?
That's a player.
I know there's a player, but there's not a team. And there was a couple of other really English ones. There was maybe an Arsenal. I feel like there might even be Juventus.
Oh, this is just
Yeah.
It's either Uruguay or Brazil. I remember that much. Oh, okay. I'm going through the list I had in my head.
How long do we have left? Time. Right then, Mo, we've checked VAR and we can confirm that you are now in joint second place with your pal Paul Machin.
I'll take that.
12 points.
I'll take that.
Well done. Really well done. Whipping out the old Arsenal there. Turns out they really are a team.
I know. I don't know where I got that from in the back of my mind, but it just came to the front at the right time.
Google. Right then, now obviously, Sam, you are at the top of the leaderboard, you and Jamie Jackson. Now, you have an opportunity to either stick with that or twist. So it depends whether you're up to the challenge because, well, in fact, first off, are you? Are you up for the challenge?
Yeah, I can't just sit here and say no,
yes.
let's finish the show.
I like this.
No, I'm just going to stay there.
In that case, timer ready, please, because we are going to give you 60 seconds to name as many Portuguese football clubs as you can, starting now.
Okay, União, Fafe, Vizela, Berço, Braga, Bragança, Pedras Salgadas, Pedras Rubras, Paredes, Moreirense, Mirelinense, Belenense, Oliveirense, Portimonense, Sporting, Benfica, Porto, Boa Vista, Villarreal, Rio Ave, Aves, Famalicão, Tondela, Mirandela, Miranda da Fonte, Fontinhas. There's others.
Are there?
Yeah.
I mean, you could be doing a lot better than
Setúbal. What have I got?
How long have we got on time?
Victoria. I can't think.
Time. Right then. Thanks for that, Sam. Mo, can we get a drum roll, please? You got on your own 28, which takes you right to the top of the leaderboard on your own, putting Jamie Jackson, who you did it with last time, in second place. Knocks you down to third place, Mo.
Well,
third place is all right. That was unbelievable.
I can't say anything about that.
You got to group them all together. You were talking about memory tricks earlier. I was like, you got to kind of group them together.
Now then, we asked these guys if they think Man City can catch Liverpool in another video this week. So make sure you give that a watch after this on the link below. Thanks again to The Athletic for sponsoring this video. Visit theathletic.co.uk/Squawka to start a 7-day free trial and receive 50% off your yearly subscription. So it works out at just £2.50 per month. If you do that, you'll hear more from their world-class team of writers like David Ornstein, Sam Lee and James Pearce. So Mo, thank you for joining us. Let the people at home know where they can find more of you online.
Well, I'm on Twitter under The Mighty Mojo with underscores between the words. I'm on Instagram with Mo_Stewart. You'll find a lot of me on the Anfield Wrap, on our YouTube channel, as well as our subscription package as well. So I'm all over the place.
Love that. The Mighty Mojo. Great name. I love it. Well, thank you so much to both of you for joining me and to you guys at home as well. Enjoy the weekend's football and we'll see you next time on Squawka.